Hey everyone, it's the Future here. Bit of a different video. It's going to be a short talking bit about a show. I just went to Devin Townsend The Moth. And it's going to be completely spoiler free, no video footage or music or anything from the show, because I respect the vision, and if you want to see it, you can of course check it out on streaming services, or just probably other people will upload some stuff, because there were some people videoing the show, which is well, free for them to do, but I didn't feel it was fitting for the vision Devin had. Now, the reason I'm making this video is quite simple. There's not that much information about the Moth online. You can watch it on stream for the next 2 months, and I'm going to assume there's going to be a Blu-ray or DVD or something coming next. But for the people that are still in doubt if it's something they want to see, I just want to make a short video kind of explaining the concept and giving you a little bit of a idea of what to expect going into this thing. So the show was tonight. It started off with Devin thanking everyone on the production team for quite an extended time and playing 2 songs acoustically before running out of time and going into the main show. Now, the Moth, as he explained it, is a very long-term vision. He has talked about it often. It's a 10-year project that came together in the last couple of years. I think from COVID on till basically now. And yeah, it went through quite a few iterations till eventually he landed on the show it is now, which is a kind of a conceptual thing about being a creative in a destructive world, sort of is how I interpret it, but it's very open to interpretation. So let's get the main things out of the way. It's not a rock opera or something, in the sense that it does not really contain dialogue. So there's no actors or players or dialogue heavy scenes. It's very much music front to end, with a few spoken things in between, but it's very minimal. It's very music driven. And when we're talking about music and Devin Townsend, well, it's very unapologetically Devin Townsend. So if you like Devin Townsend, you're probably going to enjoy this. It's pretty heavy. It really is in that sort of empath vibe combined with epic cloud, I would say. That's sort of the main gist of it, with the occasional little bit of extra poppy stuff in there. But I think Epic Cloud meets Empath is sort of the main vibe of this show. Now, it is very eclectic. It's not the most catchy thing in the world, so you're probably not going to be able to sing along anyways, because it's all new work, of course. But it's also very ADHD, Devin Townsend, all over the place, which I think is pretty cool. There's definitely some bits in there where I went, oh yeah, this is really a bop, and then it was over and goes straight into something else. So it's a little bit chaotic, but that it both fits the theme and really fits Devin, so it makes sense. Musically, very cool, conceptually interesting, although it's not very straightforward in what it's trying to convey. Devin does a good job doing a little talk at the start of the show. I'm not sure if my audio is any good. If it is, I'll try to put that in at the end, where he sort of talks through the concept. I can't fully say I got everything out of that show the way he told it in the intro, but regardless, it's a very visually heavy and musically heavy show. So for any Devin Townsend fans that really like the empath and doesn't mind the sort of eclectic and chaotic nature of Devin Townsend, definitely recommend it. Now, if you're not that into, let's say, tracks like Genesis is, I think, the best example of this, you are probably going to be not that interested in this show, because there's a lot of that heavy hitting contrast between light orchestral stuff followed by blast beat heaviness and weirdness and chaotic stuff. But I think for what it was trying to be and for what it is, of course, it's not gone into the void. It's still out there. It can still be enjoyed by people. I think it's a pretty decent outing. And I can definitely see how this took Devin a long time to work out, because it's very orchestral, heavy, and there's a lot of moving parts with the visuals and stuff all interacting. So it's definitely a very solid production. So yeah, for a Devin Townsend fan, I would definitely recommend checking it out, even though there is that off chance that you're probably going to be, just like me, a little bit confused in the end. But just for the experience, and especially since live streaming tickets are fairly decently priced, I would say go check it out. Go check out The Moth. Very cool to be able to actually see the show in the first production run in my own hometown. It's a crazy coincidence. So yeah, thanks Devin Townsend and of course his entire team for setting this up, and thanks to the Noord-Nederlands Orkest for offering Devin Townsend their services to be able to do this with all the orchestration. That's it for this video. Short one. If there are any questions, well, drop them down below. Although we're not going to be spoilery here. I just wanted to get something out quickly so you can decide for yourself whether or not you're going to live stream it. All right. See ya.
So the story of The Moth is essentially broken up into visible metaphors that break up the process of learning to love yourself in a way that is visually tangible. And to try and find a way to represent that type of expression is deceptively difficult. And part of it is I wanted to have a character in it that played like a personification of the creative impulse. You know, it's like, as an artist, I'm sure many of you relate when you're playing, you're just kind of like, where's this coming from? Like, you know, what is music? And sometimes it's there and sometimes it's not. And as an insecure human being, it's so alluring, you know, it's to be drawn into that creative flow and think of that as being fundamentally more important than anything, the relationships, anything. And as, my son is now leaving home, and it's like we've been married for so many years, and you start realizing that it fucking isn't, Like, the art is an expression of gratitude that comes from being able to experience this. And I forgot what I was talking about. Oh, right, the music. Right. So we were trying to find someone who could play the character, and we had a couple of people lined up that regrettably it fell through. And then I had worked with a band out of Beijing, and they were called O. And so I contacted Lynn and Anthony, who were in the band, and said, listen, we've only got a couple of weeks. Can you pull this off? And not only did they, but they did. So when you see them, or when you see Lynn tonight, she's from the band O, and she's a brilliant talent, and I'm so honored to have her here with us. So the concept of The Moth. Okay, so you're going to see so much shit. There's so much going on that, and having not seen it, I assume there's going to be a good 85% of you going to be like, okay. But I think the biggest thing is the way that I tend to approach music is I don't necessarily feel like you write it, you just listen for it. And this one has been poking at me for a long time, and I never know what it's about until the end. And I think over the past couple of days, Sarah and I were talking this morning, I think it's probably, and I'm paraphrasing this as well, I think The Moth is about accepting, it's like shadow work. It's like accepting the part of yourself that for many years had not either been addressed, or it had been, a product of some sort of trauma, or something that came through in the form of unconscious tendencies or patterns that sort of exacerbated the existing suffering that, because life's already, pretty intense, that if you're by your own hand making it more difficult for yourself, the process of getting out of that requires a type of analysis and acceptance of the parts of us, or of myself at least, that I felt ashamed of, for as many years. But the trick with this program then ended up being, well, how do you make that so it's not either like you're trying to give a moral at the end, because I don't fucking know, you know what I mean? Or you're trying to, you know, preach about something. The whole idea with this stuff is to document it. That's it. And this one, I remember when it first started coming into my mind's eye, I was just like, oh shit, this is going to be a lot of work, right? Didn't realize it was 10 years worth, but when it started, I didn't recognize that what I was looking to do was what I just explained. I thought it was something to do with sex. You know? I did. I was, you know, I've been hung up on that since I was a kid. So it's, at first I had this idea of the moth was going to be this, the same metaphor, the same idea of transformation or whatever, but it was going to be about this horrible world that was just full of dudes killing each other with their dicks and this massive queen vagina that these men with erections are like pulling out on this platform, and she's eating them and farting out dust. And it's like, yeah. And so I told my wife, I was like, okay, so I got this idea for the moth, and she's just like, and I breathlessly explained to her what I was doing, and she just said, you're not going to do that, are you? And I said, well, yeah. She just turned and walked away. And then I had an opportunity to meet with some of the representatives of Sony in London. And I said, listen, I've got this idea for this musical that I think over time could expand into something that's really kind of interesting, right? And I said, it's about a bunch of dudes killing each other with dicks, and then if I can ascend to the end, and you know, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, oh, okay, well, how much do you need for that? I said, well, probably about 10 million pounds. And they said, yeah, right. So it's self-funded. So the concept ended up changing from that, fortunately, because as the team started to expand and we had a bunch of other members, they would say the same thing. They're like, you're not going to do that, are you? But then, you know, just working through therapy, working through your own processes and figuring out where your hang-ups are, yielded something that was quite different. And so the idea with what we've done with The Moth is we've made a story about an artist who's chasing the creative impulse. And through the process of it leaving him, like writer's block or some sort of transition in his life, their life, there's an internal battle that happens between essentially, you know, fear and pride, I guess. And to try and quantify that into a way that could be expressed in music and sound was elusive, to say the least. So on first see, you're going to see salamanders and elephants and wars and all sorts of things. And on first look, it's not going to really mean what I hope it will mean in the future, because as great as it is right now, in my opinion, I think that over time this could become like really, really cool, you know, like with actors and all this sort of thing. And if it doesn't, fuck it, we got other things to do. And then I think that's it. The concepts, what's the last thing I'll say here? Biggest thing is I've always been afraid to be overt with the art, for whatever reason. I felt like if I just said it, then people would like come get me. You know what I mean? It's like this paranoid thing. It's like, not even come get me, it's just like, you can't say this, you can't say it. And I think, but I want to say something constructive. I want to say something that's beautiful. I want to say something about healing yourself in the face of relentless fucking opposition, you know? And it's not a subtle thing. And it needs to, the resolve of that needs to be juxtaposed by violence. So, when I started seeing all this bullshit around the world, all these, I think if bigots can just say all this stupid shit, then empathetic people can put together teams and say, nope.